Yes, this is the recent announcement from Zenith, the team, from Ramen VR. Zenith is a VR MMO that released a couple of years ago and is now shuttering completely because it's failed. Anyway, so message from the co-founders of Ramen VR about the future of Zenith. Let's have a look.
Hey Zenithians, I hope you guys are doing well.
I'm Lauren.
It's been a while since we've spoken, but today we wanted to talk about Ramen VR and deliver some important news about the future of Zenith.
Hey Zenithians. More parasocial crap. You're a player of our game, so we're going to call you a Zenithian.
First, some insight into the past 5 years.
He looks angry.
Back in 2019, when Lauren and I started Ramen VR, we had a singular vision. We wanted to combine our passion for JRPGs and anime and our love for VR to create a massively multiplayer online world where people could build connections and friendships that felt as meaningful as the ones that they had in real life.
What about making a massively multiplayer online world that has interesting gameplay and interactions that facilitate the natural social interactions between people, rather than set out to make something where people can just be in the same place and interact, as in VR chat? Make an interesting and compelling world with interesting and compelling things to do that will naturally bring together people anyway. So I think he's got his priorities the wrong way around there.
Back in those days, Lauren and I were working out of my sister's basement and not paying ourselves at the time. I still remember the first $5,000 check that we deposited in order to hire our first concept artist. Back then, we had nothing but a hope and a prayer. We desperately wanted Zenith to be real, but we had no idea on how to approach it. When we talked to most large publishers, they frankly thought what we were
She's gained a bit of weight, hasn't she?
Back then, we had nothing but a hope and a prayer.
Yeah. Got a bit too comfy, did you?
We desperately wanted Zenith to be real, but we had no idea on how to approach it. When we talked to most large publishers, they frankly thought what we were doing was impossible. So we worked for months carefully with our advisors to create.
I will admit that does seem to be a big issue from my limited perspective about VR, about getting VR games off the ground. I don't get the sense that publishers or those that can lend investment really have any clue or idea about what is good for VR, and only have a sense of what works in flat screen, and also we're living in a very safe, risk-averse time at the moment, so yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of struggle on that front for just trying to get some interesting VR titles out there. There's a lack of understanding from the establishment of what's good for VR.
A working prototype. We ran regular playtests with friends and family and continued iterating on what was back then barely a game loop. One day on a whim, we decided to post to Reddit. We gained an instant following, and we were humbled by the reception of a basic piece of concept art. But it proved that people wanted this to exist.
Sure.
The market was there.
Absolutely.
We just had to make the game.
Yeah.
When we started charging
You had to make a good game. Just having a bare-bones concept is not enough. You have to make a good game.
$19.99 for pre-orders, we were surprised that we were actually able to make a few $1,000s. That conviction and belief in us will stick with us for a lifetime. Later, when we launched one of the most successful gaming Kickstarters of all time, it still felt like we were dreaming. With some of the money we made, we hired our first few devs and concept artists and started full production on Zenith. From day one, Zenith was something we wanted to build alongside the community. That's why we had so many surveys, 7 or 8 testing periods, and made a ton of adjustments based on feedback directly from the Discord.
Why are we being told this? I don't understand why they're front-loading this presentation with the general procedures that goes into testing and making a game. They're making it seem like as if they've done something remarkable or special or unique. So you incorporated feedback from Discord, good for you. You hired some people because you got donations and investments. Good for you. Okay. I don't understand why all of this detail is being front-loaded. Is it supposed to make us feel sympathy, or to show how hard they've worked, just like any other creative who does anything of minor note? It feels parasocial again. You think they're trying to get in the zero to hero come-up story? Yeah, maybe.
With every successive iteration and reveal, we got more hype from our community, influencers, and VR players. But even we couldn't have anticipated how successful launch.
Yeah, you did. You did get hype from influencers. One in particular, actually, which I found jarring. And I have no problem publicly pointing a finger at this one. No problem at all, because I think it deserves it. There was one influencer in particular who did a video on this game with a title that I still, to this day, I do not understand. The last VR game you'll ever play. And this is about Zenith. And for any of you who have played Zenith and understand just how crap it was, generally, from a gameplay perspective, and even the presentation was crap, to release a hype video on this saying the last VR game you'll ever play, which doesn't make any sense to what he says in the video. It doesn't lead to anything. Really weird, just so disconnected from what Zenith actually was. Yeah, so strange. Thrillseeker does appear to have adjusted in recent times, though. You think he's a scammer? Okay. The last game you play because you give up on VR. Nice. He's a friend of the... Yeah, right, yeah, and we know how Vale turned out, right? Yeah, he certainly did his fair share of hyping back in the day, but again, like I said, for pretty much most of the other YouTubers, the VR YouTubers, I really don't think that they mean any harm. They just, in a misguided sense, want to see things be well and people get excited. And they took it too far. I really don't think there was any ill intent there at all. From Thrillseeker, particularly, because he clearly adores VR, and I feel that him and me actually share a lot when it comes to how we view VR and its potential and what it will mean for not only gaming but society. But yeah, bizarre title.
Launch day would be. Zenith became the #1 selling game on the Steam store and the #1 game on the Oculus store.
It did.
We couldn't believe our eyes. After countless sleepless nights and stressful situations, it was the ultimate vindication. In addition to the top rankings on the charts, the user reviews kept rolling in. Not only did people love the game, they were also building meaningful connections within it. Over the last few years, we've seen Zenith marriages, Zenith babies, people getting through depression and conquering their anxiety. It felt like the game was doing everything we hoped it would.
Okay. So people were meeting and having babies. They were being less depressed. But what about the gameplay? So she's saying that the game did everything they wanted by those social elements? It didn't succeed in terms of the actual game design itself? This is where I feel their priorities were, if ever, completely off. No mention of the actual game design or gameplay or the gameplay experience. Just the random social elements, which I know is a big part of MMOs, but it's still a game.
I'm way prouder of these stories than anything else we've done.
However, behind all of this was a sobering statistic. While a lot of people were playing the game, almost none of them were sticking around. In fact, despite the fact that people said they loved the game, the vast majority of our players were gone in a month.
Despite the fact... Let's listen to that again.
However, behind all of this was a sobering statistic. While a lot of people were playing the game, almost none of them were sticking around.
While a lot of people were playing the game, nearly all of them were not sticking around. Most of them were not sticking around. I forget his exact words. Why? And what does that tell you about the players who say that they love the game? Well, firstly, it tells you that they're BSing you. It tells you that the way that we use our language today is just complete, over-exaggerated, hyperbolous crap. People throwing around insane, amazing, love, best ever, without realizing the actual gravitas of why those words exist and what they mean to us. Just complete reckless use of the language. But it also shows you that, again, they're BSing you. They're not being genuine when they say they love the game. But and if people say I love your game, that's already that's already weird, I think. No, they don't. They don't love your game at all. They're interested in it in that moment at an elevated amount. They don't love your game. Just very, very, very reckless usage of words. And devs should not be buying into this. The part about Zenith babies made you laugh into tears and you don't know why. How old do I think these two people are? It's hard to say. So you can usually, looking at people's necks, it's a trick that I heard from or learned from somewhere a while ago, can be a reasonably good indicator of one's age. Though, for herself there, because she has a bit of a bloated neck, that will distort things. I would say he's maybe around the same age as me, if not a bit younger. I'm 35, 36, either one. I'd put him at early to mid-30s. Maybe even 30. Roughly the same for her, too. You definitely wanted to love Zenith, but it just wasn't that good. Right, it sucked. She said she had sleepless nights, but she looks like she never caught up. Ooh. Asian faces are misleading due to skull structure. They don't develop wrinkles easily. Yeah, this is true, actually. It's true for Asian and black. They tend to... It can vary, of course. Having lived in China for many years, there were definitely some Asian faces that you can really tell the age, and they looked older than their age. But then there were some that were the complete opposite. In general, yeah, they tend to age better than white people, I think. Just my opinion.
In fact, despite the fact that people said they loved the game, the vast majority of our players were gone in a month.
Mm-hmm.
We're losing players faster than we should get new ones.
Why?
To try to solve this, we went all out on patch development. We shipped many key features in our first patch, including instance dungeons, raids, and the Celestial Throne. While we did that while completely ripping out our original backend and rewriting it from scratch. In the years that followed, we tried extremely hard to get our engagement up with a crazy amount of new features and content, all to try to change the equation. We even kept a list of the top 10 issues reported by players and specifically set aside time to address those issues. We conducted in-depth user interviews, we talked to so many users, and we pushed hard as a studio to try to build the game into what we thought it could be. We started a paid content creator program so we could try to build some buzz, and spent money on Facebook and Instagram ads to try to acquire the right audience.
But the game was complete jank. The fundamental core interaction and gameplay was complete jank from beginning to end. It doesn't matter if you add instance dungeons. It doesn't matter if you add new areas. Everything that you did in the game, pretty much everything, was jank. Combat was complete crap, and the enemies would lag teleport around all over the place. Their animations were complete... I'm going to use a stronger word here. The animations were complete shit. You could see how they were smoothly keyframing from one poorly done stance to another, if they weren't lagging all over because the server infrastructure was so bad. There was no sense of weight or presence to anything that you did. The environment looked crap. They did a little bit of an overhaul, but it still didn't do much. There was floating terrain everywhere. just the art style just didn't. It was generic and just crap. Admittedly, one thing that Zenith did do well, which I enjoyed, was the flying. And there were some nuances to flying and how you twisted your wrist, which I enjoyed. For all my criticism, the Zenith team did have an eye on emphasizing having menus, well, some menus, and some of the traversal, or a lot of the traversal actually, be physically based, where you grab and climb up walls and things. But except for the gliding that performed reasonably well, I thought, everything else was just pure jank and crap. Why do you think that people left? It was just a bad game. Combat in Minecraft is more satisfying. No joke, it is. Content upon content upon content upon a game with mechanics that aren't fun. Right. Janky, poorly done, completely lacking in depth. Mechanics and gameplay, that is just not interesting. I've heard this about the flying, that they nerfed it because there was an exploit where you could fly really fast. I never got involved with that exploit personally, and I didn't stick around with the game for long. But I do remember reading that there was a bit of an outcry about that, though it would seem to be justified on the devs' end because it messed up some of the design. But I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on how they could have handled it better with the flying nerf.
Audience. But none of that really moved the needle.
Why?
Despite all of the hard work, the story was always the same. We'd see.
Despite all of the bad work? Just own up to it. There's a lack of accountability here. Despite all of the hard work, people didn't like it. So then why? Why didn't they like it? There's no mention of this at all. It's just patting themselves on the back without going into any kind of detail as to why people didn't want to stick around. It's just the people didn't want to stick around. It's their fault. We did all the hard work. So we got to shut the game down now.
A big bump of returning users during a big patch launch that sometimes broke previous records, but they would largely disappear within a month.
Because people were clearly still interested in your game, and they wanted it to be better, and they wanted to experience it in a better, more interesting state, so people were coming back. So there was clearly still interest, and they were holding out that it would get better, but it didn't, and then they disappeared again. That's why. You failed. You messed up. There is a plague to the human race where people believe hard work equals good work. Right, yeah, it's to do with this parasocial weirdo stuff that the internet has made more common. Yeah. Hard work does not equal good work at all. It's nonsense.
Up until 2023, the game was still breaking even from sales, so we could afford to support it despite the declining user base. However, due to declining sales, at some point last year, we started spending much more money on developing Zenith and keeping the servers up than we were making on it. So in 2023, we decided to make a big Hail Mary bet. We were going to rework the core game loop and business model from the ground up to get players to stick around. The genesis of that became Zenith Infinite Realms.
Yeah, so they did a U-turn on the original premise of the project, of it being an MMO, and they announced a while ago that they were going to stop developing the MMO and that they would have it as a side content DLC that people could play if they wanted to, but all of their focus would now go into a free-to-play procedural roguelite co-op thing where you go through these procedurally generated zones from beginning to end. I never actually played it, and just have a little bit of RPG progression, and that was going to be their main focus. And they would sell cosmetics, but the actual MMO part, where the millions of dollars of investment went into, and what the players originally came to the game for, that was going to be just put to the side and never updated. So you can imagine that the tiny amount of players left were not happy about that. And it's obviously didn't work. And even then, the people who did play this free-to-play roguelite mode that they put all their bets on reported back that it was just broken in many ways and janky and didn't work, and it just had all the same problems as Zenith, if not more. I don't know what they were expecting. It's just bizarre. I can only assume they were living in their own very insulated bubble. Just crazy. Crazy.
Despite our best efforts, 3 new seasons and a 4th one on the way, our user base continues to decline week over week.
It looks crap.
Ultimately, users just aren't sticking around in Zenith, and we haven't been able to accomplish what we've wanted despite 5.5 years of solid development effort.
Because, despite 5.5 years, players aren't sticking around. So then you would naturally follow up and say, well, we clearly didn't do the right thing. Those damn players. They let us down.
Hindsight is always 2020. In retrospect, we never would have spent time redoing the first-time user experience, nor would we have launched Skylands as a full split from the existing world.
Mm-hmm.
We probably would have spent just a bit more time polishing before launch as well.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. After the 4th season patch in August, we'll be stopping new content development on Zenith and shifting focus to new projects for the studio. We'll continue to address urgent issues and bugs as they arise, but we won't actively be building new content, seasons, or game systems. We'll continue to run Zenith for as long as we possibly can and have no immediate intentions to shut the servers down.
I'm going to give it, let's see here. So after Season 4 comes out for their free-to-play crap, nothing more will happen. Player base is already tiny and non-existent. I'm going to give it 4 to 5 months before they announce the shutdown of the servers completely. 4 to 5 months after Season 4. That's my guess. All they had to do was just make polished mechanics and they would have been fine. It would have helped for sure. Zenith's problems were, or Zenith, I'm British, I say Zenith. Zenith's problems were many, but polished gameplay would definitely have helped, for sure.
For people who bought Zennies, we're going to give valuable gifts and exclusive content in our future experiences. We won't be able to give refunds directly, though. In terms of our Kickstarter backers, we've done everything possible to give out Kickstarter rewards, with the exception of custom weapon grants, which we'll be introducing in the final content patch. For those of you that are still waiting on fulfillment for other rewards, please check out our FAQ for a way to get in touch with our team immediately.
Although Zenith won't be a part of our journey going forward, our drive to build online worlds has never been.
Oh, God. Does anyone else's eyes just roll with this corporate rhetoric? Zenith won't be part of our journey going forward. Who talks this way? Jesus Christ. Who buys into this crap? Who buys into this way of talking as seeming in any way genuine? I'm guessing teenagers at best? I don't know. I think even teenagers would have better sense. By that age, it's just, oh. Yeah, just speak like a normal bloody person and not this stupid, flowery language that only makes you seem more fake. Corporations and the general corporate speak must have cottoned on just to how counterproductive that kind of speech generally is nowadays. It's long since worn out. Capcom cancelled Mega Man Legends 3 and said, yeah, the fans just didn't seem that interested in helping us develop it. Like, oh, it was you. Okay. Nice. Nice, Capcom. Yeah, this is definitely a shutdown video. Definitely. Of course. And it probably won't happen too long. There's a handful of users at best. You're thinking most VR games are aimed towards teens and preteens? You know, I kind of get that feeling as well, actually. Yeah, I do. Which I don't think makes any sense, because I because I believe those who, especially those on PC VR, the excitement around VR is going to more be from veteran gamers, or those who have or particularly my generation, who grew up with games really hitting their stride from the 1990s onwards. That VR would be the most exciting to my generation and perhaps somewhat younger, because it would feel like such an obvious and exciting step, whereas the younger ones won't really have a frame of reference. They'll still be interested, of course, but then because they don't have a frame of reference and they don't have anything to compare to, then they will have lower standards and say, nope. Yeah, I agree. It does feel like they're, the lack of complexity of VR games and the overall simplicity in presentation, they do overwhelmingly feel like they're targeted toward kids.
Been stronger. We are more committed than ever to building games and worlds that connect and enrich people through shared play. We've learned and grown so much through our work with Zenith, and we hope to carry that knowledge into the creation of something new and awesome. From the bottom of our hearts and everybody at Ramen VR, we want to thank the community for all your support.
How many people there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 people.
For Zenith over the last 5.5 years. Your passion, kindness, feedback, and devotion is the reason that we got into game development to begin with. From the 80-person raids to Arbor Root World Boss runs and Tonekeeper raids, even food competitions, your creativity and dedication is a genuine inspiration. Thank you for joining us on this journey, whether you're first in line to pre-order the game before the Kickstarter, or you joined us from Infinite Realms. We hope you'll keep in touch so we can share what we're working on soon.
No, you don't. You don't hope for any of that. First of all, he looks angry. There's something clenched about his expression, and it isn't just his this still frame here. They've just spent most of the video saying that the decline of Zenith was a lack of players. And no matter what they did, the players didn't come back to support them. And yet they're so thankful for these players? Are you? Really? I get angry vibes from him.
Andy and Lauren signing out.
Yeah. And considering the state of Zenith and all that happened, we're not going to be too excited about whatever they do next, if they even manage to do anything. Yeah.